Welcome back to CT Top Solutions. Today, while we're waiting on belts for the 69 Lincoln, we're going to play around with our 93 Corvette Z07. We have a service engine, it's not a service engine light, it's a selective ride control idiot light that's on right now. And what it is, these cars are equipped with a few features. Here, I'll show you.
All right, so what we have here, we've got a 93 Z07 Corvette with the FX3 suspension. Those of you who don't know what FX3 is, let's take a little tour. I've already been working on this. That's why some of these harnesses are hanging down. You'll see it later in the video. But anyways, FX3, it's right here. This Tour, Sport, and Performance ride control system. And why I call it FX3, well, not me, why it's called FX3. See that service parts identification card? Well, that's all the different codes, they call them RPO codes, that correspond to the different options on the car. And as you can see, FX3, it's right here. That's why these are called FX3. That's the option code for the adjustable suspension. I did get the selective ride control light, SRC. That means the FX3 suspension needs some attention. So that's what we're going to be doing. We're going to be fixing the suspension. Anytime anyone has an FX3 equipped car, if they do have a problem with it, I've read numerous posts where people say, well, you know, whoever, you know, whatever mechanic or a friend or whoever told me, oh yeah, it's real easy to just disable that. And that is true, it is easy to disable it. However, it's a really desirable option, and I would highly recommend repairing as opposed to disabling. I'll put a link so you guys can check out exactly what the FX3 is. It's the best link I've found online as far as reading up on it and just finding out what your car is actually equipped with. It's not as simple as just 3 different settings for your suspension. It's 3 different management profiles for your suspension. And it's adjustable, so when people buy aftermarket adjustable shocks for their cars, this comes with adjustable shocks that automatically adjust based on speed. So it's a pretty sophisticated setup. Anyways, let's get to work.
Okay, so I finally found the ALDL connector. That was actually a little more difficult than I thought it would be. And it's really funny. I was just reading somebody online who shared a similar experience, and they never did say where they found theirs. So what I did, here, come on down in here with me. I removed the panel that normally goes here. That was easy. And I was looking for the ALDL somewhere up in this realm. Couldn't find it, so I started pulling on cable and stuff like this. And boom, here it is. What happened was it was tucked way up behind it looks like a heating control, kind of way up there. And while I was down here doing that, I also remembered this little goody guy right here. This is for the airbag. What I'm going to do today is put a resistor into here to clear my airbag idiot light, just because that's always kind of embarrassing. So we'll take care of putting the airbag resistor in, and we'll take care of jumping pins A and C. So normally this would be oriented like this. Pins A and C. This one here is A, top right. C, this one here. Be 2 over from A, 2 to the left of A. When we jump pins A and C, we should get a code from our service ride control light. I will record that. Okay, we've got pins A and C jumped. Now we're going to turn our ignition to the on position and watch our code. So the way this should work, it should start off with a code of 12. Alright, so ignition on. Service ride control should start. Well, that's not doing what it's supposed to. Oh. Alright, that was our 12. You see the 1 and the 1, 2? That was our 12. Now we got 1, 1, 2, it's the second 12. 1, 1, 2, it's our third 12. So that's the start of the code sequence. Now it'll start spitting out codes, and then it'll give us the 12s again. So we got a 1, 1, 2, 3. So we got a code 13. 13. 13. Wow, 32. Yep, 32. Okay. That's 13 and 32. There's our 12. So that means our sequence is ended. So we got codes 13 and 32. Well, that was pretty easy, right? Alright, well now we'll have to move forward with trying to fix whatever the issue is. Just for the heck of it, I want to check and see what's our 126,000 miles. It's like new.
So passenger side front, I've taken it apart. Here it is. You can see the gear itself is cracked. So we're going to end up replacing the gear with a new one. That gear actually does look metal, but it is cracked. You know, inside the actual actuator, those teeth look to be in good condition. I've heard that sometimes you'll see rust inside those. I don't see any. So let's pull this gear off. Whoa. I think I might actually need some pliers to lift that gear off. To get the gear off, you can't just simply pull on it. I'm trying to show you guys a video right now. Can you see that push pin? So what you can do, you just use your hands to turn that gear up there. It turns real easy, finger use, no wrench or anything like that required. You turn that so you get access, and then you use a real small punch to go ahead and punch that pin out. And once you have that pin where you can reach it, just pull it out with pliers. Lift your old gear off, put your new gear on. Be very careful about the stops on the gear, which you can see it's at the very bottom. Here, as I rotate this, you'll see it. See how the stop hits that? I say to be careful about that because they're different through the years. You know, the earlier FX3 suspension has additional travel within the shocks, so you don't want to put the wrong gear on there. That could be a problem. Front gear is replaced, it's all back together. I used a 1/16 punch that was a little bit tight, but ultimately I was able to get the spring pin out, get the new gear on and the new spring pin on. Hopefully that fixes it. Now we're going to take apart the rear driver's side. That one requires removal of the wheel, so I'm going to jack it up. Figured you guys might like to watch. For the rear shock, we ended up using a 13mm socket to go ahead and remove these two bolts to break the shock free. And now I'm just going to compress it. I'm probably just going to jam a pry bar right in here, bring it down to expose our actuator. We ended up just removing the shock from the car. It literally took an extra 2 or 3 minutes tops just to undo this nut and just drop it right down. When you drop it down, it exposes your actuator. And this connector that comes right off, no big deal. It wasn't even brittle, it was in good shape. This looks to be the original Delco actuator, whereas the front one was not. The front one was some sort of aftermarket, so the front has been worked on. The back, no such luck. So I'm guessing that this actuator is just tired. So you just undo this little spring clip, and you just lift the actuator right off, nice and smooth. Whoa. Nope, so this gear is really shattered and actually stuck inside the actuator. Well, the interesting thing is, I can take that gear from the front that wasn't that bad, but now I don't know, is the actuator bad? Or was it the gear causing the trouble? I mean, the gear is still holding in place pretty good. Oh, I see though. Where it was broken is on the stops. You can see that it's still stuck inside here. So maybe that was what our problem was. Well, initially I guess I'll just try putting another gear on this one and see if that fixes our problem. And if it does, then great. I don't need a new actuator. I can just save it for later. Found something interesting. When I picked out this piece of broken gear from inside the actuator, if you look close, and this is going to be very hard to show you guys, the gear inside the actuator, the plastic gear, is actually shattered because of however this failed. Boy, this looks metal to me too. That has to be aftermarket. So I think what I'm going to have to do is replace this actuator anyway, since the internal gear is shattered. And while I'm at it, I'm going to buy another metal gear for it. I already have another actuator. The harness is much longer than this, but that's okay. So looks like that's what happened. Looks like this gear failed, and in the process it shattered the internal actuator gear. While we're waiting on parts to come in for the shocks, we're going to do another repair. Yesterday I took this out, ran it for Aaron, and the heat wasn't working. It was like, oh man, that's kind of a bummer. So I watched a YouTube video that showed how to fix it. Now I'm going to show you how to diagnose and fix it. I suspect that it's a blend door motor, but I'm not sure. So here's how you diagnose that. Put the ignition in the on position. That green LED should start blinking to indicate that there is an issue. I can hear the blend door clicking. You hit these two buttons simultaneously, I'll tell you what your code is. And it's not saying there's anything wrong. Alright, so much for that idea. While we wait for the other metal gear, the other steel gear to come in for that rear shock, I'm going to go ahead and solder in our 2.2 ohm 10 watt resistor for our airbag idiot light. Once that's soldered in, that idiot light will close. I'm just heating up the solder station right now. And here we go. I'll videotape this for you guys. Now when you're doing this, your mechanical junctions are not to be the solder joints. You want to strip this out and thread it through the hole and then solder it. I'll do this on time lapse for you guys because you know, it's just really not that entertaining. You know, I mean, this is real, you know, delta stuff. Or was it tri-lambs, right? Let me grab my pocket protector. Do some soldering. If you guys don't get that joke, you need to brush up on your 80s classics. All right, so I stripped these out pretty long. I'll go ahead and just twist them so we don't have any individual strands sticking out. I'll make sure we fit pretty good through here. Oh yeah, that's a very nice fit. Oops. Yep, this fits great. If anything, it fits maybe even a little tight. There we go. See how our mechanical junction is actually done with the cable, and then we'll go ahead and we'll solder it in place. So this way your solder joint isn't making your mechanical junction. The solder is just holding your electrical there. And there we go. Go ahead and plug this into our harness, and that will prevent us from getting any kind of airbag alarm. I'm also going to go ahead and wrap this up with electrical tape so that there's no chance that these will short out on anything. So here's our finished product. I soldered this all together. I taped it up so nothing would short out. It's not exactly pretty. I went to install it in a car, and guess what? This is the wrong harness. This is the harness that goes up in the steering wheel. So when I went to connect it in the car, it wouldn't fit. This is the correct harness. So now I'm going to cut this all apart and redo it with the correct harness. So I soldered on the correct connector. I did a little bit of a cleaner job with the solders, with the solder joints, and also with the length of the wire so that everything lines up pretty nicely. And I'll go ahead and electrical tape it up so that nothing shorts out. Something to note, if you're going to do what I did a resistance check from here to the resistor to make sure that I didn't have anything messed up. If you look at this connector, this is kind of a little bit of a specialty connector. I've never seen one like this. When it's unplugged, there's a contact that actually bridges the two. So in order to get the resistance check, you know, I just took a little piece of non-conductive material and jammed it right into there. Boom. And then resistance check right across here. I got 2.2 ohms, which is what the resistor is rated for. Should be good to go. Plug it into the car. That'll clear our airbag idiot light. Okay, here's our resistor, all taped up, soldered on, real nice. Here's our connector. Here's our plug. We'll just plug this thing in, and then we will tie wrap this up and out of the way later on. All right, that's in. Just a temporary check to make sure that that does clear the airbag idiot light. We'll go ahead and we'll turn the key to on and see what happens. Key is on. See that INFL rest that's blinking? That is our airbag idiot light that we want to clear. Oh, there we go, just cleared. What we're going to do is take this gear out, the one that's destroyed, the broken one, which requires pushing this little spring pin out. What I'm using here is my 1/16 punch, which is actually a little on the big side, but if you hit it hard enough, it works just fine. And I'm going to let you guys watch. All right, wish me luck. All right, I can get on there pretty good with it. So what I'm going to do is get on it and then kind of hammer the pliers. That's not going to work. Looks like I'll be hammering up. It's hammer time. Oh, I hope that's not trademarked. Boom. See how it came right out? One take, piece of cake. And look at that. Look at that nice spring clip. If anybody needs a spring clip, this is available for purchase. No, I'm just kidding. I'd give it to you if you needed it. All right, I'm just going to save it there for now. Here's our broken gear. Yeah, that one. Whoops. The good core. It's repairable. Now, one question I had... Oh, look, there's still pieces of it on here. One question I had that maybe some of my viewers could help me out with. I rotated this shaft when nothing was on it. You know, with that gear broken, there was no stops. So I rotated it more than 180 degrees. So I really have no idea where this is as far as the shock is concerned. So I'm a little concerned when I put the new gear on here, I may have it turned too far or too little and it won't be damping properly. I'm hoping that my concern is for nothing, but I suspect that that was a major mistake on my part and I never should have rotated this thing beyond its stops. Also, something to bear in mind, if I were to redo this, instead of buying this $40 gear, I would buy the whole new replacement shock, which costs $200, but includes the steel gear. I think in retrospect, that would have been the smart way to go. I didn't do that, I think because I just didn't realize it at the time. And then after I started doing a little more digging, I found out. Oh, so bear in mind, this is a 92 to 95. This is going on my 1993 Corvette. And the difference is the stops. The earlier ones have a wider range of adjustment on here between the stops. All right, I'm going to show you guys how this goes on. You know, here's our actual stop right here. So that's our range where it cannot be adjusted. Our range of adjustment is in the open area. So when we put this thing on, there it slides on, and there's our full range. And all you have to do is line up, I'm sure you guys can't see this, but you line up your hole and you push your spring pin in and you are good to go. Now, just to aid in installation, I like to put a little liquid wrench on. There. As you can see, that new spring pin is in all the way. Our rotation. See how we have our stop right here. Right here. See what happens as we rotate it. There we go. But that's why I'm concerned, because I rotated that shaft when there was no stops here. So it may be way beyond its factory valving. I don't know, when I put it on the car, I'll let you know how it feels. A lot of you probably already know this, but the average NASCAR pit crew can remove a tire, get it on the ground, get a new tire, put it back on, have all the lug nuts tightened in roughly 9 or 10 seconds. Consider this my official tryout. Now, they have a little bit better impact gun than me. Theirs, I think, spins at around 18,000 RPM. Mine, think that was right around 5,000 or 6,000. You let me know. But my floor model special, not quite up to the task probably, but that's okay. It's all on the wrist. It has nothing to do with the tools. So let's see how fast I can do it. All right, any bets? Any bets? Okay, ready? Wait a minute. Let's get you guys a little bit of a better view. There you go. All right. All right, that should be good. On my mark. Get set. Go. Oh. Bad start. Ooh, I think we ran out of air. Better go check the compressor. I may have forgotten to turn that on. It's so hard to find good help these days. Whoever set up the compressor and the air hose kinked the hose. Tisk tisk. So I went ahead and I reset up everything, so we're good to go. Everything's retightened. Let's try this again. No one take piece of cake, huh? All right, here we go. On my mark, get set, go. Done. There we go. What was that? 15, 20 seconds? Well, I guess I'm a better tire kicker than a tire changer. Nah. Here we can see our original actuator versus our new actuator. Our new one has a much longer harness. That's because all the new ones come with the long harnesses that you would need to install in the front. And that's fine. You can put these in the back as well. You just tuck the harness up into the frame, up into here. So we're going to put this on. I did order a replacement clip with the new one, but the original clip that came off is actually fine. So I'm just going to end up reusing that, but I'll have a spare clip in the future in case I need one. And then these, if you ever do replace one, never throw these away. These can actually be repaired by some places online. I don't really know the secret to how they disassemble these, but I saw one place that makes these CNC gears for inside there. They look like a work of art. I mean, they look really cool. See inside there how it's all broken? So they go ahead and they fix that. All right, I'm going to go ahead and put this together here, which actually I have this positioned poorly. See how these are facing like this? That's how it bolts in. You're going to want this facing this way. So let me undo that and rotate that. Live and learn, right? Yeah, I'm true master of my trade. There we go. All right, same deal. You know, it's sitting on here. Rotate it a little bit. There we go. See how it went right down without having to force anything? That's what's key. If you're forcing it, you could be damaging the plastic gear inside there. Which, you know, that would really be a bummer to go through all of this and then break a brand new actuator. All right, just put the spring clip back into place. All right, so see, now the spring clip is actually resting in place in all three spots. You see it right here. Now as I push this, you should see it clip in. There. See how it clipped in? Oh, the back one doesn't. The two front ones, they clipped right in. So now this thing's on here nice and tight. All right, next step, install this into the car. Pro tip here, on any car, not just this car, when you're reassembling this sort of stuff, see these threads? You know, they're not in bad shape, but a little anti-seize is your friend. You're probably never gonna have to take these off again, but you never know. And if you do end up having to take them off again, if you would put a little anti-seize on here, oh, it makes life just 1,000 times better. So I highly recommend it. Let me show you how this had to go back together. So you see this bottom bolt here? I could not get that in, so what I had to do, if you chalk over here, you see how I have the suspension jacked up just a smidge so I could get that bolt to clear. And then also if you look up here, you can see a little bit of clearance between the shock and the frame. I don't have either one of those bolts all the way tight either. This way there was a little bit of room, a little bit of flexibility so I could get that in there. Oh, nope, got the anti-seize on there, very nice, right? Okay, so that repair is done. That was actually the original purpose for bringing this car in and starting to work on it. I had the selective ride control idiot light. While I was mid-job, I ended up going ahead and I took this to run an errand or something. I forget what it was, but it was pretty cold out and I had no heat. It ended up being, I'm pretty confident, the blend door. About break time for dinner, but here's an update on our growth work, this blend door motor. You can almost see it. So what happened, you've got to take the dash out of the way and you have to get this ductwork out of the way to get to the actual blend door motor. The motor is tucked back here. You can't even see it. It's kind of behind that tube. But, you know, I'd read online some things you could do, and one of the things that I ended up doing, to little avail, is I drilled these 5 rivets that were holding this right there. And that did make it easier to get this down out of the way, but I still have to remove this entire assembly, and this is one big piece of ductwork that goes all the way across the dash. Something to keep in mind if you're doing this yourself, be careful, there are screws behind here that go into here. They actually, like, there's one of the holes that the fastener threads into. They are 7mm hex head screws, and the General really had a trick up his sleeve by hiding those from us. Now on the driver's side, there's one right now that really has me kind of stumped. I need a 7mm very, very thin wall nut driver. What I'm trying to do, this is going to be very difficult to show you guys, but so right back here, there's actually a screw. I definitely can't show it to you guys, but you can see the screw hole from this side. So right here, let me get my laser pointer. All right, so right there. So there's a screw coming from behind, threading into here, that's holding this piece of ductwork in place. I need to get to that screw. I tried to access it from the top, that's just not happening. And I have a pretty good set of tools to do that. So my next step is to go ahead and pull this switch out of the way and try and maybe get some sort of a side cover off and get to it from here or maybe back here. Yeah, actually maybe right here. So when I went to take this off, I hit a snag right here. It needs to be a really small 7mm nut driver to get to that. I was able to force my way into here with my my little Tecton 7mm socket, but it just isn't happening for there. We're at the point where we're trying to get our heater box out so we can get access to our blend door actuator motor, which is at the very top right there. I'll circle it right now. That's it, blend door motor actuator. So in order to get the heater box out to access that, we need to get the heater core out. So we're going to disconnect our hoses from our heater core. We're going to disconnect one at a time. This here hose, that goes to our reservoir. I'm going to disconnect that one first from the reservoir so I can just hold my shop vac tube right on that hose and just suck enough coolant out so that when I pull the heater core, coolant doesn't drain all over the place. Whoa, almost forgot to mention, speaking of shop vacs, do yourself a favor and get one that really sucks. We have our funnel set up. We've basically started wiggling that off. As soon as we pull it off, a little bit I'm sure is going to drip into there, and we're immediately going to connect our shop vac hose to that hose. Hoses are off, but the heater box is still in very tight, so something else has to be holding it. The top hose, as you can see, that one fought me a little bit, but it's off. I think it's reusable too. I don't think I damaged it, but in the interim, I'm looking to see what might be holding it. If you look down there, you see that one through bolt? I think that may actually be holding it. So I'm going to take that out and see if that loosens it up. This blend door actuator is a nightmare to replace. We have our heater core disconnected at this point. Here's our blend door actuator. This bolt is accessible from the top in the engine bay, and that one was actually really easy to get off. It's just a nut on the other side. Problem is, there's 2 problem bolts. Let's come down here and let me pick this up so I can show you what we're looking at. So, right yonder, this looks to me to be a through bolt coming in from the outside that I think I can get from underneath the car. And there might be another one right here from outside that I was able to get on it. It's a 10mm socket that I was able to get, or wrench that I was able to get on it. But once I'm on it, I can't really turn it. I mean, it's in a location that it almost looks like maybe the intent was to access this. You just pull the engine, no big deal. But I don't feel like doing that, you know what I mean? I'm gonna show you. Here's our nifty tool that we made to access this. I've tried all kinds of different extensions and things like that. All right, you should be able to see it down there. It is illuminated. Boom, right here. That's it, I'm on it. So I can very slowly take it off by doing that. There is one 10mm nut accessible from underneath the car to get that heater box out in order to replace this blend door actuator. It's right there. I can get on it with that wrench, but I can't turn the wrench. So I think I'm gonna have to come at it from right here where the camera is and just put a universal adapter on the socket. So while I'm down here working on my heater core, I decided to take a look at the radiator just to see what kind of condition that's in. Look at that. It's pretty torn up, right? So I'm sitting here thinking like, what in the heck? How did that happen, you know? And then I get looking at this fan. Something went through this fan. Little FOD damage. Huh. Weird. Foreign objects damage. Weird. I don't understand what went wrong here. But looking at that, I'm actually half considering even more scope growth. I mean, what's my rush, right? So there's the rear side. My radiator is clearly in tough shape. Now take a look at the front side. I don't know how many people have actually looked underneath these Corvettes. I mean, if you're watching this video, you're probably pretty familiar with these, but look at, I mean, this one has 130,000 miles on it. Look how torn up. There's my AC evaporator. And then behind there, you can see, look how torn up this is. There's my AC evaporator, and behind it, you can see the radiator with all the bent fins and stuff like that. Right about now, I'm thinking, you know, Corvette was never America's HVAC car. Why am I even fixing this? In retrospect, you know what? Heat is overrated. Anyhow, so I luckily was able to find an eBay picture of one of the heater boxes for sale, and it was from this year, 1993. And the picture had a pretty good view from the inside showing where all the bolts are that hold this thing in place. There are 2 bolts hidden back here behind the AC. So I'm gonna try and take this box off and push the HC like just a little bit, maybe towards the front of the car so I can get into there. Now in taking the box off, you need to get all of your screws out from the center. And I did miss one right here as I was trying to pry, so don't let that happen to you. Sometimes you just have to take a break and gather your thoughts. And by gather your thoughts, I mean scour the internet for any kind of clues about how to accomplish a job like this. It turns out you do have to remove your air conditioning evaporator box, which is what we're looking at right here. This whole assembly. Now it is in 2 pieces. I started working on the driver's side piece yesterday and kind of got hung up. I mean, it's loosened up at this point, but I did not get it out. And when I started reading online about it, you actually need to pull the exhaust manifold to remove that part. So they say online that it's actually relatively easy to remove the passenger side of your evaporator case. So that's what we're working on now. So I've already loosened up some of the hardware that's accessible from the top. There is at least 1 screw underneath the blower motor. So in order to get to that, I need to pull my side access cover. For those of you that have never removed one of these access covers, pretty simple. You've got a 10mm hex right here. You've got another one that's down here, kind of wedged. You can see it. See that rusty bolt? I already removed it. You just stick a 10mm wrench in there and get it and loosen it all up. And then you have your Torx fasteners right here. These look to be, wild guess here, T35. Oh my gosh, I guessed right. That's what I'm talking about. You take all those out, pull your side cover off, and that should give us a little more access to get into our evaporator core box. Last night when I was reading about this, I read about one guy that was able to get up into here with a 7mm ratchet. And I figured I would give it a shot, and look at this. I'm actually into there. You can see that it is pressing down on the heater core box pretty hard. Hopefully that won't break it. but I am into there. The question is, can I get to the back one? Which you can, there, see how there's a second pedestal in the back? That's where the second screw is that holds that motor in. I was able to get the front screw out using this style ratchet, which makes for a very, very shallow engagement. So that's why I was able to fit inside there. But even with it this shallow, you know, that ended up really pushing very hard on the heater box. And, you know, I think you run a risk of damaging it. I did try to get this to the back screw, and that just wasn't happening. So we returned to removing our evaporator box. Made some more progress, got the passenger side inner wheel well out of the way, as well as the washer, windshield washer reservoir and pump. And now that exposes our last, I hope, our last fastener. See it down there? Little 10 millimeter underneath the heater core box. I think if I undo that, I can get this half out. Oh, of course I'm gonna have to unplug that last harness. Once this half is out, hopefully I can just slide the AC evaporator to the left to expose the screws to get the heater box out on the inside of the car. And then we can actually install our blend door actuator. Get it? Actually install our blend door actuator. Nah. When you're doing this job, don't forget, it looks like there are 2 screws at the bottom of the evaporator housing. Looks like one of them is right here. And the other one, I believe, is right here. I might be wrong, but I think there are 2 screws there, so I'm gonna have to figure out a way to get to those from underneath. So we've got the passenger side of our AC evaporator box off. You can see those 2 screw holes at the bottom. They were a real pain. I left the screws just hanging in there so that I can just reach them from underneath the car when I go to put it back together, and hopefully those will start. I had to use a universal and some extensions. Then you got the 2 in the front. Those weren't too bad. I actually had to get this from up top with a 1/4" drive ratchet inside there. But if you look at this thing's filthy. I'm actually kind of surprised my air conditioning worked so well. And now I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to shop vac this out for sure. I mean, that's incredible. I bet that thing is probably 60, maybe 70% blocked, and my air conditioning still blew cold. Crazy. So we've got our AC evaporator out of the way. I was going to leave all this connected and just try and pry it over. And right here, those are the 2 bolts that are still holding the heater box in that I could not get to. And as you can see, here's the outline of the evaporator. The evaporator directly over them, so there's no accessing them from, you know, reaching down through this hole right here. You know, I guess, you know, somebody said they did do that. Good for them. I'm not going to be able to do that. So, here's our original evaporator. I took it out. I've ordered a replacement. This one, as I started to clean all the crud out of it, I kind of focused on this bottom area right here. That's all kind of gummy, and I'm not sure, but I think that might be like AC, like air conditioning, like stop leak. So I didn't want to run the risk that this thing was going to leak. I figured I would just pull it all apart now. I'm in here. I'll go ahead and replace these O-rings, put a new evaporator in, and the condenser up in front of the radiator, that's pretty trashed too, so I ordered a replacement one of those as well. But here it is, our original evaporator, which, well, I mean it has its date code on it. I'm not sure, I might have to swap this switch over. We'll see. I'm just going to put this to the side for now. And there's our view from inside here. And this is actually all loose right now. If I just pried that off, that should be able to come right out, but I don't see any reason to take that out. I should be able to just undo these 2 fasteners and our heater box should fall right inside. Those of you watching along trying to do this yourselves, you're probably wondering how I got to that 10 millimeter hex that's all the way down at the bottom. You could see it hanging right now. Here, let me point it out with the old laser pointer here. Oh, right there. You're probably wondering how I got to that. Well, let me explain how. Here at CC Top Solutions, anytime we have a problem like that, it's not an issue. we come up with solutions. And what do we do for this particular solution? Limited edition tools. Handmade, fabricated by myself. Check this gem out. We have our 10mm wrench taped to our 21mm to get a total length of 31mm. No, I'm just kidding. But yeah, we do have our 10mm taped to our 21mm. You can't put a ton of torque on it, but it's enough so that I could get down there. The reason I ended up taping it to another wrench, initially I had it taped to extensions for a 1/4 inch drive, and they were too thick. They were thicker than this, so they were rubbing against everything else inside there, and I was having trouble getting enough of a turn to get a click on the ratchet. So this is what I came up with, and it worked like a champion. This is it, the moment everyone's been waiting for. The heater box is finally coming out. Looks like that's the best way to do it. Just slide it up in and then rotate it. Okay, there it is, it's out. Oh, and we still have our blend door actuator connected. So let's just disconnect that from the harness. All right, that's unplugged. We'll grab our trusty 7mm and get this out so the harness is completely off, and we can take this thing completely out, and I can show you guys what made this such a learning experience. All right, let's take this off and let's see if we can actually see what's broken inside here. Hopefully we can find like a smoking gun, like a stripped gear, you know what I'm saying? All right, just lifted right off. That's real simple. Okay, here's our new one in comparison to our old one. There, that's more like it. Proper orientation helps. Now the original one, I notice, has a metal gear. I don't know if that's better or worse. Oh, look at this, and like a keyway. I see, that's the keyway for the actual blend door. Our new one, it's down here on the floor. Our new one has a similar keyway, but okay, I see what's going on here. So you got to take this plastic piece out of this one and put it into here. I might open this one up too to see if I can actually see anything that's stripped. Oh yeah, just comes right off, real simple. And then it just slides right into here. Pretty. Wow, this is like a 5-minute job after 2 days of removing obstacles. There, it's in. Well, that was easy. See how we've got our shaft that's keyed right there? Pretty simple. Lines up with this key, and that's it. Just screw it in, you're good to go. This should help illustrate how this entire assembly goes together. Normally your blend door actuator sits right here on top, completely blocked by the shelf between the windshield and the car. This is where your firewall normally is. This is on the engine side of the firewall. And these are the bolts that hold the heater box in place. So you got those 4, 5, 6 holding it. Oh, and then 1 accessible from the front, 7. So in order to get to these 2, you have to get that AC evaporator out of the way. There's no way around it. None that I could see. I did hear of someone that was able to reach in from inside and get to it, but I wasn't. And had I done that, I would not have realized what terrible condition my evaporator was in. But then once you get, so this part comes out much earlier in the process, but once you get the whole shebang out, then it makes it real easy to access and replace the heater core. And that's what we're going to do now. Here's a nice comparison between the original heater core, which I was able to read the brand name on it. I believe it's Harrison. Yeah, Harrison 93E, that's the original. It's in pretty good shape. There's a little bit of corrosion in the center of it, but that looks like something may have just dripped on it. I don't think it leaked at all. And then you compare that to our new one, and there's definitely a drastic difference in the size of our fins here. I don't know if that really matters. The actual core itself actually looks like there's a pretty substantial difference in that as well. So this one has, wow, this weighs like, I bet this weighs a quarter of the amount that this weighs. So it looks like it may be a little bit less deep. No deep thoughts for that one, right? And it looks like it has way more fins. I don't know if that means it's more efficient or what the dealio is. Came with a nice new gasket. I'm cool with that. Ooh, I love these too. Wow. Why don't you guys come over and check this out? I started to just, I don't know, curiosity got the best of me. I decided I wanted to open up my original blend door actuator and see if I could find a smoking gun. So I opened it up, and the first thing I did is I started rotating this, and I was like, oh man, you know, the gears, everything seems to be working okay. This could, you know, this may have not ever been an issue. This may have just been bad troubleshooting. But then, look what I found. I picked this gear up, right? Oh my gosh, look at that crack. Can you guys see that? Look at the size of that crack. So basically, this is free spinning on this gear because the gear itself split. Here, maybe that'll... So you can kind of see it. There's little metal teeth on here that are grabbing this gear, but because it's cracked, there's clearance there. So what I was hearing, the clicking I was hearing, was actually this gear slipping on this metal part. Oh, here we go. Here, I can get this apart and show you. Yeah, yep, there it is. So here's the teeth. Those were slipping. You can actually see inside here that there was some slipping occurring because this was broken. So there we go. Problem identified. Oh man, you know, I wasted all that money. I bought a $20 actuator. I probably could have got a 5-cent gear. Live and learn. Check that out. Our new heater core is installed, as is our new blend door actuator. And that's a major milestone. So at this point, I can actually start reassembling the interior. I still have some work to do in the engine bay that I'm not going to finish this weekend because I'm waiting on parts. I need that new evaporator, condenser, and radiator to come in. But the weather is beautiful out right now. I hit a major milestone. Sometimes it makes sense to just take a break and enjoy the weather. You guys ever see wild hogs? What better way to enjoy a nice warm day than a ride?